right, so we are talking this week about sowing seeds of kindness. Now, it's part of our harvest theme for October, and I don't really think about fall as a time to plant, and yet it is. From the writings of Parker Palmer, he's a blogger, author, poet, exceptional New Thought writer. And he wrote an article on the autumnal paradox. She scatters the seeds that will bring new growth in the spring, and she scatters them with amazing abandon. In my own experience of autumn, I am rarely aware that seeds are being planted. Instead, my mind is on the fact that the green growth of summer is browning and beginning to die. But as I explore autumn's paradox of dying and seeding, I feel the power of metaphor. In the autumnal events of my own experience, I am easily fixated on surface appearances. Recognize yourself there, folks? On the decline of meaning, the decay of relationships, the death of a work. And yet, if I look more deeply, I may see the myriad possibilities being planted to bear fruit in some season yet to come. In other words, we have to remind ourselves that when it appears that things are dying, that things are ebbing, that our life is on a decline, that within that, there are still new seeds being planted. Always. For our growth, for our evolution, for our transcendence. Everything calls forth from us our next step. So nothing is really dying. You know, those leaves don't turn that pretty color unless there's been a really good frost, right? We were up in Washington, and only some of the trees were turning. So it was a nice juxtaposition. There were streets where all the trees were green, and then at the end of the block there was one red tree. Or there was one green tree and one branch was yellow and orange. On one street, all the trees were yellow. You know, it's no accident that all of this glory shows up for leaves that are going to fall off. Because hidden in everything is the new growth, the beauty, the pattern of life, the cycles of life that nature always demonstrates. He goes on to say, the words that come closest to describing this paradox are the words of Thomas Merton. There is in all visible things a hidden wholeness. In the visible world of nature, a great truth is concealed in plain sight. Diminishment and beauty, darkness and light, death and life are not opposites. They are held together in the paradox of the hidden wholeness. A paradox is something where two seemingly opposite things are true at the same time. They don't negate each other. They are, in fact, part of a mysterious unity. We say that darkness is the absence of light. You bring more light and the darkness disappears. You can't really bring more dark if there's any light involved, right? The light always wins. So we remind ourselves that whatever this opposite thing is, it has no power in the opposition. The power is in the gifts of both. You know, if we were to live in a society where we didn't have any darkness at all, think New York City at 2 a.m., right? Lights are on all the time. The problem is we're not meant for light only. It messes with our circadian rhythms. It affects the way things grow. It affects our ability to get enough rest and refreshment and renewal. We are meant to have both in this human experience, and they are both good in their own way. So, daily life. You know, this isn't anything except a pretty theory unless we can actually use it. There seems to be a lot of things dying these days. People talk about the death of civility, or maybe compassion, or a lack of empathy in their personal world or in the greater world. You know, our Our social autumn is this apparent division that's being magnified right now in the media, in our culture, and sometimes even within our own families or within our own decision-making process. Things are divided. And yet, it's part of a cycle, right? And how do we inspire the flow of light, if you will, or life, to return? And the way nature does it is to scatter seeds. And so what we are doing, the antidote to division and chaos and rudeness and intolerance and impatience and any other in word you can think of, is kindness. Kindness. Kindness is love in action. Kindness comes from the place in us that has compassion for another, that has empathy, that understands. We can all do something kind. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of time. You can have a lot of reasons for not being kind, but chances are your own nature has many, many, many reasons to only be kind. Now, how in the world is my smiling at the cashier going to change anything else out there, right? How is my saying please and thank you, or how is my holding the door for someone or helping someone with their groceries, how is that going to possibly change the polarities that we see in the world? Or any of the isms that are showing up, racism or genderism or ageism or any of the things that we've personally experienced. The truth is, no one thing solves everything. But there's no such thing as a small act of kindness, because kindness always has a larger effect. It's out of proportion to whatever the initiating act was. There's a quote on your bulletin, and I want to read the whole thing to you, by Amelia Earhart. No kind action ever stops with itself. One kind action leads to another. Good example is followed. A single act of kindness throws out roots in all directions, and the roots spring up and make new trees. The greatest work that kindness does to others is that it makes them kind themselves. Right? You've seen the commercial. Somebody holds the door, that person picks up the baby's toy that got dropped, the young mother helps someone with their groceries. One act of kindness generates another. And it's not always one for one. It's not always directly back to you. We tend to pay it forward, because what happens is kindness, like love, is a way of being. It's not just an action. It's the way we think. It's the way we look at the world. It's the way we see our own worth and the worth of others. It's the way we validate one another's experience. When I was an exchange student in Switzerland, I was 17. And I know it may be hard to believe, but I was a very angst-ridden 17-year-old. Everything was high drama. I was going abroad for the year, and I had stars in my eyes. And, a few months in, the reality set in that I was lonely, angry, couldn't speak, could barely understand because I didn't know the language well enough. And the truth was, I felt really invisible. And I was getting sadder and slower and a little less enamored with this whole idea of living in a foreign country for a year. And I came home from school one day, and my Swiss mom, who had lived in the States for business back in her youth, had a couple things on my bed. And she used to do that. She'd pick up, if I'd requested shampoo or something, when she'd go grocery shopping, she'd just put it on the bed, and then I'd have what I needed. And I came in to find this little tiny jar of peanut butter. Now, they don't eat peanut butter in Switzerland. They have no idea what my friends had to explain to my other friends what peanut butter was. She brought me this little tiny jar of peanut butter. And in that moment, looking back now, there was a turning point. Because that was just for me. I didn't ask for it. It was something she thought I might like. She'd noticed I was slipping a little, and she wanted to give me a little support, a little boost. It was an act of kindness. Now, I didn't think to myself at that point, oh, wow, somebody sees me, now I'm ready to go. I couldn't have articulated that in any language. But what I know happened with me was that I felt seen. I felt worthwhile. I was worth someone's time and attention, whether I could speak or not, whether I was clear in my language or not. And in that moment, I recommitted to my year. I had the best year of my life. And I have never stopped appreciating what I learned on that trip about myself, about the world, about how to get along with all kinds of people. And today I pay it forward because I volunteer for that same organization, because I want every kid to have that experience. One act of kindness is affecting teenagers today because I show up at the airport and make sure kid A gets from LAX on to Boston or wherever it is they're going for their exchange year, and I'm there to help them get home when they go home a year later. So you see, we don't know what that extra smile does. We don't know the repercussions of holding the door for someone or offering to help someone. We don't know what people are going through. And you never know how your reaching out can change everything. But you do know when you act and live in a kind way, from a loving heart, with peace on your mind, you are better off too. Because you are inviting in, you are a magnet for that in life. And that brings you more of that kindness, that love, that peace. In Science of Mind, when we talk about spiritual mind treatment, which is our affirmative prayer, which is the tool we use for healing, we remind ourselves of the power of life that is in and as everyone. That what some people call God is the actual energy and intelligence of all of life that animates everything. And from that place, we claim the truth of life, that we are in alignment with beauty and joy and light and love and wisdom. That's the truth of who we are. Therefore, no matter what the circumstance or the situation, beyond appearances, there's a greater truth. We are that. We are grateful, and so it is. Now, in the treatment process, Holmes says we turn away from the condition. We don't focus on the problem and get all stirred up all over again. We look at and focus on that which is greater than that. So whether it's money problems or relationship problems or decision making or any other thing that comes up in your life that makes you go, oh, now what? We focus on the truth that there is always a way forward and it is good. However, he also says we don't ignore pain. We don't say that pain doesn't exist. We don't say that there is no trauma in people's lives. You know, we love, we laugh, we hurt, we cry. All of those things are true in our experience. We just don't stay there. And the way we move forward is we do just that. We move. So we treat and move our feet. We take action, but we take it from the place of remembering the greater truth of who we are. And that changes the actions that we take. So if somebody wants to pick a fight with you and you fight back, it will escalate, yes? If somebody wants to pick a fight with you and you are not pushing back because you are in a place of knowing peace, knowing kindness, knowing love, knowing something's going on but it's not yours and you just want things to move forward well, the way you respond is going to be totally different. And I want to be part of the response that spreads love in the world. I want to be part of the response that doesn't respond to the fighting aspect of life, but to the loving aspect, to the understanding, to the being present to people. This is what seeds of kindness are. So whenever we are kind, especially in the face of dissonance, what we're really doing is changing the vibration of life. We're putting out there, we're magnetizing to us, we're spreading this idea that yes, things sometimes are hard and there's still a way to move forward lovingly. Yes, sometimes we disagree and it's still possible for us to be friends. Yes, sometimes I do not understand what those kids are doing with their lives, and yet of course you can come to Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, it's the paradox, right? Both things are true. But the greater truth will always be love. And the way we show love to one another is to be kind. Parker Palmer also says, in retrospect, I can see in my own life what I could not see at the time. How the job I lost helped me find work I needed to do. How the road closed sign turned me toward terrain I needed to travel. How losses that felt irredeemable forced me to discern meanings I needed to know. On the surface, it seemed that life was lessening, but silently and lavishly, the seeds of new life were always being sown. Leo Buscaglia, who wrote about love, says, too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. And so this week, what I'm asking you to do is to sow seeds of kindness. And I have something to help you with that. Mickey, can we have our baskets and maybe grab a helper? I'm going to ask you to take a little tag out of the basket. Don't pick it by word, just pick. It's a God thing. Let it come to you. And on these little tags are words which are, just down the aisles, are words that have to do with kindness. And this kindness is the one you will be spreading this week. So you're going to be looking for opportunities to be kind in a particular way. And what I think is going to happen is that you will also notice other people being kind in this particular way. And here's the second part of that. We are being kind to strangers. We're being kind to the people that we see every day but maybe don't know their names. You know, the people at Starbucks know my first name because it's on my cup every time. I have to remember their names. We're being kind to our family and our friends, and you are also to be kind to yourself. So if your kindness tag, Jerry, quit reading them and just pick one. Your kindness tag says smile, you have to smile at yourself. Oh, that's awkward. Well, do it in the bathroom when nobody else is in there. Nobody will see you doing it. Right? If it says open doors, that can be metaphorically, not just physically. Sure, you should be holding doors open for people, but maybe you open the door for your nephew by handing him a new book that takes his mind somewhere new. Maybe you open doors for yourself by finally saying yes to that community class you want to take. Are we catching on here? All right. Anybody got a good one? Or anybody got a card they don't really like? You traded it in. All right. That works too. Okay. So she pulled a card that said compliment, but it's something she already does, so she wanted to try something different. That works too. Remember, if you pulled the card that says compliment, who else are you going to compliment? Yourself. You got it. Shelley got that one. Okay. Takes practice, doesn't it? Look, she's rolling her eyes already. That's good. That's good. You know, the truth is, our nature is to be kind. Our nature is to smile at people. Our nature is to be helpful, to feed someone, to offer to help, to listen without giving any advice. Anybody get the listen card? Yeah, just listen. No advice. Just listen. Just listen, unless they ask you a question. You see, we're giving a gift to people, and we're making ourselves aware of just how much our presence matters. Because it does, because you do. So the last thing I have for you is a quote. One moment. Amelia? From Jens Stoltenberg. Jens Stoltenberg is the former president of Norway and the current Secretary General of NATO. And he says, when autumn darkness falls, what we will remember are the small acts of kindness. A cake, a hug, an invitation to talk, and every single rose. These are all expressions of a family, a community, a nation coming together and caring about its people. What you do matters in the biggest possible way. Namaste. So I invite you to join me in a moment of prayer. Taking a deep breath. Breathing in and out. Acknowledging that cycle of ebb and flow. Acknowledging the rhythm of the seasons, even here in California. Acknowledging that seeds are always being sown, even when it appears things are dying. For what I know is that this life is infinite, and the way forward in any human situation can be one of a multitude. This truth of life that is beauty and joy and love and clarity is the very life energy that is breathing in and out of each one of us. And so I speak my word for this week, that each and every person here finds in themselves yet another doorway to that love, that beauty, that light. I speak and know that the creative force of life is alive in everyone here. That new and fabulous ways to connect are being born right now. That the seeds of kindness planted this week are guaranteed to grow, to spread, to create new trees. For this nature of life is the very nature of us. And we are that love, that energy, that force of nature, showing up as kindness, as caring, as presence, as love. I am so grateful for the love in this room, grateful for the love in every heart, grateful for the kindnesses previously received so that the seeds might be harvested and passed on. Grateful for the blessings yet to be. And simply allowing this to unfold in space and time, I release my word into spiritual law. For in the mind of God, it is already unfolding perfectly, already healing, already lifting up, already sprouting. And I simply let it be so, and so it is. And I will be asking you about it next week. I want to hear how it goes. All right, my friends, it is time for our ushers to come forward, to share our bounty with our community, to participate in this law of circulation. By knowing and acknowledging that we give because we can, and we give with a sense of joy and ease, and gratitude so that we are spreading joy and ease and gratitude out into the world. If you will, say with me our prosperity affirmation, which is in your program. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am prosperous now.
Ramblers in the wilderness, we can't find what we need. We get a little restless from the searching, get a little worn down in between. Like a bull chasing the matador and the man left to his own schemes. Everybody needs someone beside him, shining like a lighthouse from a sea. Brother, let me be your shelter, never let you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way and bring you home. Face down in the desert now, there's a cage locked around my heart. I find a way to drop the keys where my failures were. Now my hands can't reach that far. I ain't made for a rivalry. I could never take